Okay, let's get started with trying to make a clone of the BBC News website, or at least the top part of it. So here it is. Here's how it looks. I'm going to start with the index.html file that we've been working on throughout this course. It's in Text Wrangler here. So if I go to the desktop and open that up in Text Wrangler, there it is. So I'm going to rename it, save as, and we'll call it bbc.html. We'll change the title to, I'm going to call it Rob's BBC, so I can tell the difference between that one. And we'll keep the styles. We'll do those inline, or internally, sorry. And there we go. There we've got our basic BBC website with no actual content on it. Let's get rid of that and that. Okay, great. So let's start from the top and work our way down. You'll notice that there are two bars that go all the way along from left to right. This sort of dark red bar and a lighter red bar there. So let's start by doing a bar that goes all the way across, which has that dark red color. In order to get that dark red color, I'm going to use an extension for Chrome called Colorzilla. There are lots of similar extensions and similar ones for Firefox and Internet Explorer as well if you want. All they do is allow you to pick colors from the page. So you just hover it over and you can find out the HTML code of any color, which is very handy when you're doing something like this. So there we go. That's the color that I want. So let's switch over to our BBC file. I'm going to create a container div. This is generally good practice to put all of your website content into a single container. It just gives you a bit more control over what goes or what styles are in your website compared to the full body of the page itself. So let's call this the top bar. I'm using an ID here because there's only one top bar, so it's appropriate to use an ID tag rather than a class, which I would use if there were more than one of them. I'm also trying to indent, keep everything nice and clear. There we go. Right, so let's make some styles for my top bar. The main one that I want is I want the background color to be 100%. Oh no, I don't want the background color to be 100%. I want the background color to be that I've copied and pasted. I want the width to be 100%. Okay, so let's see what that looks like on its own. So let's open it up with Google Chrome. Nothing at all is there at the moment. Not a problem. So the reason there's nothing there, we first need to add a height for this div. There we go. Now we've got a bar which looks fairly similar. It's maybe a little bit too short. Maybe I'll go for, let's say 45 pixels. Now I could go back into the BBC News website and work out exactly how tall that is, but this is just a learning exercise. I don't want this video to be 5 hours long, so I'm going to make things reasonably approximate. So it will look good, but it won't be exactly the same, and that's fine. So I think that's now about right. The main problem we have here is that, as you can see, there's a margin there. We've got a margin around the edge of the div, which we don't want. So to get rid of that, that is most likely a default margin from the body tag. So if we set the body tag margin to be 0, there we go. Then we've got rid of that. So it's now bleeding all the way to the edge, which is great. Let's just have a look at those heights again. Maybe we should make it slightly smaller. Let's say 40 pixels, and we'll see how we go from there. Okay. Now the next thing to notice is that the BBC website, like a lot of websites, has a fixed width portion in the middle, which stays the same width no matter how wide your browser window is. Even if you make the browser window smaller, it's still that width. And then when you have a nice wide browser window, then it stretches these parts, the red bits at the top, to the very edge to give it a bit more space. So we're going to try and recreate that effect as well. The way we do it is we have a div inside our top bar div, and this I'm going to give a class of fixed width. Now the reason I'm giving it a class rather than ID is because we're going to need to use this again when we create our the lighter red portion, and again when we create the white portion with the actual news on it beneath. So I'm using a class so that I can use my class several times. So going up here, fixed width, I'm using a dot because it's a class, not an ID. And I need to add a width. I'm guessing it's somewhere around 1,000 pixels. And now to make it actually centered, there's a nice trick that does this. Margin 0 auto sets the margins automatically, and that centers a div within another div. So let's just make sure that that's working. We can't actually see anything at the moment because it doesn't have a background, so let's give it a background color of blue. Yeah, we still can't see anything because it doesn't have any content. Well, we can at least just add some text there. There we go. So that's nice. You can see that's working well. There, we've got that fixed width idea. Maybe it's a little bit too thin. Yeah, BBC definitely looks a little bit wider than that. So maybe we'll go for 1,200 for our fixed width portion. We'll just have a little look at that. Oh, a little too wide, I think. Let's say 1,100. Maybe a touch too wide. Call it 1,050. Great. Okay. Right, so now we're working from top to bottom. Let's work from left to right. So we want to get this BBC logo there. I'm not going to try and recreate that with text. I'm going to use the Mac screenshotting tool to get this logo. And it's nice and easy on a Mac. You use Command-Shift-4, and that just turns your cursor into a selecting tool, and then you select the logo there. That then saves it straight away to your desktop. There it is. So I'm going to rename that to BBC logo, and I'm going to go into my websites, into the CSS folder, and create a new folder called images. And that's generally considered good practice as well, that you keep all your images in an image folder, and that just keeps everything nice and ordered. Okay, great. Let's get everything back in the middle. Okay, so how can we get this image into our website? I'm going to get rid of this background color as blue because I don't need it anymore. And I'm going to get rid of the SDF as well. So I'm going to create a new div, and I'm going to call it logo div. And inside that div, I'm going to have the image. So img src, remember source code is, or source address is images, and it was logo.png was the name of the file. So let's just have a look, see how that works. It doesn't. What have I done wrong? Images, I called it BBC logo.png. Let's try that again. Great, okay. Excellent, we're looking pretty good. Now we definitely need to move that down a little bit. So let's give it a little bit of padding. So the logo div there. We'll create a new rule for that, and we'll have padding top. Not much, I don't think. Maybe 8 pixels. Let's see how that looks. Oh, bit too much. 5 pixels, pretty good. Okay, that's pretty nice. Now, what's going to happen if we add a new div there is it's going to be below that div, which we don't want. So we're also going to need to make this logo div float left. All right. You'll notice also that there's a line just to the right, a nice sort of subtle divider there that separates the BBC logo from the sign in part of the menu. I think the color of that is the same as the color of the lighter red part. So I'm going to select that color, and I'm going to do a right border on this div to achieve that. So we'll say border right, 1px, solid, and that color. See how that looks. Okay, not bad, but it's definitely way too close to the BBC logo itself. So we need some padding on the right as well. Let's have 30 pixels. There, let's see how that goes. Okay, not bad. We do need that to be a little bit closer, don't we? Maybe 20 pixels. Or maybe even less than that. 10 will probably do the job. Okay, excellent. Right, so moving along, let's get a little screenshot of that sign in symbol. There, so same trick as before, Command Shift 4 on a Mac, or you can use the snipper tool on Windows as well. I'm going to call that sign in, and I'm going to drag it into the images section of the folder structure for the site. Great, back to Text Wrangler. So after our logo div, let's just space that out a little bit. We're going to have, now what I think I'll do is I will treat this div separately to all of these divs, because it's a slightly different style, and then we'll have all of those ones in a single div as a list. So this is going to be, have an ID of sign in div. There's definitely only going to be one of these. And we'll start by putting that image in there. Images sign in.png. And let's just see how that looks. Okay, it's there. It's obviously too high up, so we need to move it down and across a little bit. But just before we do that, let's put some text in as well, and then possibly we can move the whole thing in one go. So sign in. Okay, so we need to do something with that text. We definitely need to change the color. Is there anything in particular we want to do with colors throughout? Probably not. No, okay, but we can definitely see that everything on the top part, apart from that search bit of text, is in white. So let's say everything within the top bar, we want to have a color of white. Excellent, so we've got the text the right color. One problem is it's not the right font. So getting fonts on a website is reasonably straightforward. Going to the developer tools, we should be able to view the actual content of the site, and there we go. Look, if you look at the body tag, it's got the font right there, so that's handy. It's likely that the website actually uses a number of different fonts, but for our purposes we'll keep it the same, keep things simple. So we'll make the font family that. Okay, fine. I think we need it a little bit smaller and possibly bold. So let's have a new set of instructions for our sign in div. So let's make it bold. And let's make it 0.7 EM. Remember, 1 EM is the same as the default, so 0.7 should be a little bit smaller. Okay, I'm not liking that font. It's not looking similar enough for my liking. So maybe we can find a different font. Here we go, Arial Helvetica Sans Serif. So all I did there was click on the magnifying glass, then clicked on the sign in text and searched for the font of that particular text. So with any luck, this will give us a closer approximation to that font. Yeah, that's a lot better. Great. Okay, and now we need to make it a little bit bigger. Maybe even we don't need to resize it at all. Let's see. Okay, just a little. Let's go for 0.9 EMs. Okay, nice. We're getting there. So we need to move both of those down a little. So let's introduce some padding to the sign in div. So we definitely want some padding at the top. We used 5 pixels before. I think we're going to need more than that this time. So let's have 10 pixels at the top. While we're here, we're going to need quite a lot of padding on the right. So let's guess at around 80 pixels on the right. We don't need to worry about padding on the bottom because it's going to be aligned from the top, and we definitely want a fair bit of padding from the left as well. So let's try 0 on the bottom and 20 px on the left. Okay, that's looking good. I think that's nicely aligned, but this sign in is a little bit low. So we definitely want to move that up a little bit. Let's try 6 pixels. Yeah, I think that looks good. Now that image then we're going to need to move down in order to make that work. So what we'll do, we'll select the image within the sign in div, which we do like that. So sign in div and then image. This will affect every image within the sign in div. And what we'll do, we'll just give that a margin top of, let's try 5 pixels. That should shift it down a little bit. But we only want the image to move down, so we can try a padding instead. No, that has the same effect. Okay, so what we'll do, we'll use a relative positioning instead. So position relative and top 5 pixels. That means that the symbol itself will move down, but the text won't. So I think that's good. I think we've possibly moved it slightly too far, so let's go back up just. So we'll just go 3 pixels. I think that's good. It's slightly higher up, which is what we want. Now we do need some more padding on the left, definitely. So where were we here? 20 pixels. Let's make that 50 pixels. Right, we're not getting any padding on the left. Why not? 6 pixels down. Let's just try making that 0 on the right. That's strange. It's not keen to give us our padding. Okay, not a problem. So we'll make this just, or we'll leave that as it is for now actually. And we'll have, so I've just put that in a pair of p tags. So all the p's within the sign in div will be affected by this. So we can just make it, give the p tag a margin left of 20 pixels. Right, so the sign-in div is going to need a border on the right. You can see that there. So let's create okay, so it's made it a pretty big div. So let's restrict that width to maybe 200 pixels. See how that looks. Okay, that's about right. Now you can see what's happened here. We've got a problem because the padding that we've added in has made it slightly taller than it would otherwise be. So that border, therefore, is sticking out the side there. So we don't want that. Let's get rid of this padding. And we'll try a bit of relative positioning instead. So we'll make the width 200 pixels and the height 100%. And we'll just stop the video there, and we'll carry on in the next video.